the lifestyle-interventions.com website. And today we have a brief video on the topic of culture and its relationship to our health. We're glad that you joined us today. There's a lot to say about this topic, and I wanted to say that this video is a backdrop to several articles about culture and cultural dynamics that we believe bear on our health. And we'll be posting those on our website in the near term, perhaps within a couple of weeks or a month. We see a direct link between our culture and some of our subcultural areas and the whole issue of our spiritual and mental and physical health. We think that the topic is worthy of scrutiny because we continue to have in our country a substantial, what we call disease burden, a substantial ongoing epidemic of disease in terms of heart disease and cancer and insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and autoimmune disorders, several types of dementia, autism, and the like, weight difficulties. And so it seems to be very persistent and is not letting up, and we think we need to look at issues like culture in that regard. Next, I wanted to mention a few ideas relating to culture in terms of who we are. Who we are is related to many things, including who we hang out with, who we affiliate with, where we live, where we learn, our educational institutions, our peer groups, and our families. Where we spend our money is part of who we are. What we believe is a critical, absolutely critical issue in terms of who we are. Then we have a whole series of very important cultural issues that I wanted to mention and that we will elaborate on in our articles. One of them has to do with abortion and the flux in the whole issue of abortion currently in our culture with people with opinions about everything having to do with abortion. Some people believing that under no circumstances would abortion be justified. Other people, including some medical professionals, willing to take the life of a full-term child. So the next issue in our culture is a very persistent problem with crime. This is related sometimes to mental health issues, to poverty, to gang activity, to drugs, and many other issues. Next, an issue that I call political shenanigans, having to do with opposing political parties, the membership of whom are behaving like out-of-control teenagers with revenge and anger and talking over each other and being very uncooperative, a big issue in our culture. Next, I wanted to just mention the availability of drugs and addiction. And the addiction can be to any number of things like food and tobacco and cannabis and opioids and crystal meth and cocaine and on and on. Next, as a cultural issue, I would just mention toxic marketing. That is the marketing of products which really gives us a very unrealistic, unhealthy message. For example, driving down the highway and looking at a billboard with a big, juicy double bacon cheeseburger deluxe on there, the message being you can't live without this, you need to go get one of these quickly. And so it's those sorts of things, when put together as part of the whole, become very unhealthy. I wanted to mention suicide as an ongoing problem, as an ongoing serious mental health issue. There's a lot to be said about that, and we will be doing some writing about that. To go on with key issues in our culture, I wanted to mention again all sorts of misinformation on the internet. One of the things I very much discourage folks from doing is going on the internet willy-nilly without a plan and taking as fact what you're finding as you have questions about things and so on. So be very cautious about that. I particularly I particularly caution my my fellow mental health practitioners and health and wellness people to be very careful what's on the internet about those topics. Technology is an issue in our health, sometimes in a very positive way, sometimes in a very negative way. Next, the infiltration of relativism, a hugely important topic. Relativism referring to this tendency to normalize all behavior, regardless of how harmful it is. And that's going on in our culture in a major way. Homelessness and poverty are big issues, and we will elaborate on that in our articles. The food industry is a very big deal that influences our health, not especially, but certainly part of that is the fast food industry that continue to provide us with a lot of unhealthy foods that little children are getting addicted to very early on and for a lifetime. And I want to just raise a very important and interesting question. How is it that in some cultures, in some countries, or parts of regions of certain countries, people live a long time without getting sick at all, as opposed to our country where we live a fairly long life because of significant medical interventions, but we have a disease epidemic that is just hugely important and needs to be dealt with. So the point being that there are differences among cultures that we could maybe learn from and benefit from discussing. So that's about all that I wanted to say today, and I urge everybody to take a look at our articles as we post them, and very much appreciate you being with us today. Thank you.